What up, everyone? Welcome to my channel. So, I'm sitting here and I'm doing all this research on endocrine disruptors and problems that people have in general, and then, of course, on carnivore because I'm doing a challenge and I really want to make sure that my information is completely solid so it makes sense to the person watching. That's why I'm going this hard on my research. And so many people, when I have consultations, so many of you guys are either tired or you start gaining weight. This is what I've been seeing with people the last week. I mean, there's a lot of issues, but those are two very common ones. Kind of want to go over what those things could be so you guys are more prepared. So, number one, if you have a destabilization or dysregulated blood sugar before ever doing carnivore, and then you do it, 9 times out of 10, it's going to get more. Your blood sugar is going to become more dysregulated, out of balance. And so, all those things like how you breathe, how you walk, how you stand, how you think, the time you go to bed, the histamine responses to certain foods, um, not eating enough, fasting, all of these things can, your blood sugar should sort of bounce in the middle right here. And all of a sudden, now you're having bigger swings on carnivore because you're not in ketosis. So many people don't understand this concept. If you cut out your carbs, now you've lost like a major source of fuel that your body's used to, which is glucose. And your body will do anything to try to bring back up those glucose levels by breaking down muscle and skin and collagen. Like you can't even make this stuff up. And converting it back into, so basically proteins in the body and bone marrow, reproductive organs, puts pressure on your thyroid. Your body will do anything to get the glucose back. And so some people start to test their blood sugar on carnivore and they're like, man, my blood sugar is so high now. First, it's great. Then after a while, it starts rebounding and getting higher and higher because you never adapted. Then there's the problem of eating too much protein, which is why I've been very critical of this concept called priming lately because it's illogical. It makes zero sense. Our hunter gatherers did not pound down the meat day in and day out. They did not eat pound, 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pounds of meat. And then there's, of course, another barrage of issues that have to do with chronic dehydration and your organs connected to the plumbing of your biliary duct system. So that's a whole nother subset of issues. But particularly why you're tired is because you're not adapting. Protein is not a good source of fuel. I've tried to explain this to people. It's either through fat, right? You can go through lipolysis or break down fat into ketones, or you can use glucose as your primary sources of energy. But it's very difficult for your body to make ketones because it's so used to being addicted to carbs. Then you cut them out, and now the body doesn't know what to do. And people expect, to this massive weight loss because somebody told, certain people say that if you fast and do carnivore, it's just win win win. I mean, you got a pimple, just fast and do carnivore. I mean, your booty itches, just fast and do carnivore. I mean, you got an ache, you got fibromyalgia, you've got thyroid, just, and no one's really actually looking at their existing health and even knowing what's going on with your blood sugar. So a lot of you guys are feeling tired just simply because you're not adapting. When people finally get a continuous glucose monitor or a CGM and they're like, wow, my blood sugar's all over the place. I had no clue. That's why you're not losing weight. Your body's inflamed, it's irritated, you're down the cortisol pathways, which is sort of like a highway. So instead of repairing, your body starts to just like being a bunch of car crashes on that highway called the cortisol pathway because you cannot put your body back in that middle balance. So it starts slamming up and slamming down, slamming up and slamming down. So a lot of gurus or a lot of people might talk about the systems of the body, like, liver disease or, your kidney function and what to consider with tests. But how do you actually draw the connection to the diet that you're eating? How and your prior body? Like what has your body gone through previously to trying these new low carb dietary measures? We have to tie in all of those things, like the existing health, the pre-health, and then the strategy on how you're doing these dietary measures to then understand like why you're not having energy. 9 times out of 10, you are not in ketosis. If you're not in ketosis, your body's not going to use that protein for good quality energy. You're not going to actually put gasoline in the tank with protein. You're not going to get the glycogen storages. You might in the liver, but that's not enough to give you enough energy. So your energy drops because you just don't have the right type of, you put in diesel into a normal petrol gasoline, just normal gas, and or vice versa. Or you're putting like water into your tank and it can't like run on water. And then there is like the reason why people are gaining weight is sort of for the same reasons. Like your blood sugar is running all over the place. And if your insulin was already kind of like wonky, that you didn't have insulin sensitivity, it wasn't low healthy, it was too high, it wasn't around a 2, it was like a 25 or a 30, or your A1C is running high and it's over like a 4 point or 5.0, and then you test your fasted blood sugar or use ACGM, you can actually start to see like, whoa, my blood sugar's been over 100, or it's been over 5.0 millimoles, and people are now starting to realize you're not going to lose weight if your blood sugar's high. It's just not. Or if it's destabilized, so high to low, where you're reactive or postprandial hypoglycemic or chronically hypoglycemic, you're not going to lose weight. You're just not. The body is not in the middle. It's not in a homeostatic balance. And when your body's not in balance, it doesn't want to lose weight. So there are these issues. As we get older, we're having issues with our cells, our endocrine system. We age. The telomeres, which are sort of the plastic ends and the caps on the end of a shoestring, our DNA, the plastic cap, like symbolically, will pop off and the ends of the shoestring start to fray. Now your DNA starts to shorten and you start to see things that your body's just not cooperating, even if it was 3 months ago. And every day that we live on this planet, we begin to age. Our body cannot take the pressure that you once could take before. For example, chemicals. Glyphosate. Glyphosate is freaking everywhere. It's in your water because it gets sprayed, it ends up in water and rivers and aquifers, and it ends up everywhere. And if you are already dealing with poor gut wall strength, then it can be compromised, and you wouldn't even connect it to that, right? Because it's an endocrine disruptor. It's made to sort of sterilize, if I say it in layman's terms, the male insect. Not only does it do that, it sort of works like an antibiotic in the gut. It can destroy the gut wall. It can disrupt your endocrine system. So then you're starting to gain weight, right? You're gaining weight because when you're like, okay, but I cut out all the vegetables doing carnivore, so technically you should be cutting out the glyphosate, which is true, which is true. But then what about the quality of animal? Because the feed that they're eating will still have it. Like if they're eating GMO corn, for example, and a lot of pork. Don't even get me started on the pork in the U.S. Just don't, unless you're going to farm and you know what the farmer is feeding the pig. So I go to local. There's some really great local farms around me. Thank God, because I will not eat supermarket meat anymore. I am done. You're thinking about like, what was it, 3 4 years ago? I had melasma, and people are like, "Oh, it's because you have hormone issues." Is it I'm having hormone issues, or is it something that I'm eating that's creating endocrine disruptor, and then I'm developing this melasma, which is hyperpigmentation on the skin? And then when you're not eating those foods anymore, then you're not having this extreme hyperpigmentation reaction. But I want you to think of everything. Like, you guys know I got a well, and I even got a really good filtration system, even though the water tested clean. Because at the end of the day, I don't want anything to be an endocrine disruptor because I'm eating a bunch of ribeyes, for example, right? A lot of you guys can't afford grass fed. So, what food is that cow eating? And if you're constantly just eating this over and over and over again, so different foods have different levels of glyphosate, right, or Roundup. And and everybody's got different levels of gut, strength or weakness. Like if you were breastfed and like most of your life you ate mostly healthy, you weren't eating a bunch of sugar, or you don't have celiac issues, or you don't have any really weird gene mutations, or you don't have the MTHFR gene mutation. A lot of you can go longer with being exposed to toxins, and technically you think you're fine. But when people have issues with losing weight and they turn to fasting and they turn to a carnivore diet because they think that is going to be their solution, it's going to be their saving grace, and people lose weight in the beginning and then they plateau and then they start gaining weight and losing weight, and all of a sudden at the end of the day it doesn't work. Same with the HCG diet or the cabbage soup diet or the keto diet. People are running into these problems. So if you're tired and you're gaining weight or you're gaining weight, you have to look at endocrine issues with being estrogen dominant. This goes for men and women, even with the non grass fed, let's say butter or the meats that you're consuming, and you're eating mono foods. So even though you're not eating the plants per se, not getting that type of glyphosate exposure, you're still getting it by the quality of meat that you're consuming or the water that you're drinking, and you're eating the same thing over and over again. And that creates an issue if you are having foods that are of not a high quality and you're eating a ton of it, like a pound or two of meat. This can have an endocrine disrupting reaction. And even though it's seemingly to not eat the standard American diet anymore, you're starting to present more thyroid problems. You're starting to present weight gain because there's endocrine disruptors. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be from glyphosate, it can be from a lot of things, but eating the same thing in high amounts can have a reaction in many different areas that nobody is considering. So it's that blood sugar dysregulation and understanding what's going on with your blood sugar. It's the fact that now that you're not eating a balance of bacterial food with different bacteria, you're just eating the same thing all the time. And so you start to develop there's an umbrella of two different types of bacteria. I think it's the bifido bacteria and the lactobacillus, and you could be dominating in one of these types of bacterial strains, and you, instead of your gut healing on carnivore, it worsens. You have to really rotate these meats every 3 days, not only for the gut health, but also to keep the inflammation down, the histamine down. Because when you're having histamine, again, the blood sugar skyrockets. So there's all these things you have to consider, like why besides, a job or working late or fasting, you have to consider eating mono foods. What is the quality of your gut? Well, most of you don't know, right? You'll stick in foods that you're reacting to, or like I said, endocrine disruptors, disrupting foods like the cheese that you're eating, right? Because these cows are fed hormones. You have to think about the cheese that you're eating, or the butter that you're consuming, or if these animals were eating corn as a feed. A lot of because there's grass doesn't grow all year long, so it's either grass fed, hay finished, which often is not enough minerals and sustenance when it's hay and it's dry. So often ranchers will give their animals feed for a very short amount of time during the winter months. And I ran into that problem myself having horses, right? Like they just like it's I can't feed the donkeys just alfalfa. It's just too high in protein. And then I can give them some type of coastal or some type of grass hay, but it's not going to be a high mineral content in it. If I'm just feeding them grass hay and they're not foraging, for example, because they're just stuck on one property, all year long, they're not migrating anywhere. So there's a lot of moving parts on why you guys don't have energy. And the main reasons typically is because your blood sugar just goes all over the place because that meat becomes like a candy bar. Then another reason is because you guys are stressed and you're going down that cortisol pathway, and that can be due to not adapting, not having enough fat, and eating too much protein, blood sugar going crazy. It can be from people use carbohydrates to fall asleep, and now they can't sleep anymore, right? Because blood sugar shoots up and it drops, they become hypoglycemic, puts them to sleep, and then you have interrupted sleep. So I really need to do a video about interrupted sleep because I keep having you people who like wake up at 2 or you wake up at 4 and you can't go back to sleep. And a lot of people think that sleeping after 20 minutes is short. It's not. Stand in a supermarket line for 20 minutes and see if that feels short. So there's a lot of moving parts. I just thought I would do a video, and I was thinking about the whole glyphosate and how it affects the gut wall, and I was thinking about fertility, and it's on almonds, and which you shouldn't be eating anyway, and a lot of nuts, and it's crazy because it's on cotton clothing. It can be on cotton clothing and tampons, in so many ways that we are having endocrine disrupting issues because we're eating mono foods. So when people do carnivore, they start eating the same thing every day. I eat ground beef and steak every day, every day, every day. And I'm like, don't do that. I mean, there's a plethora of reasons, but if you're tired, it's because you're not using ketones. And often you might have a gallbladder problem. So that becomes an issue if you can't even absorb the fat so you can convert it via the liver into ketone bodies. You're not getting enough of the nutrients from that meat because your gut is weak. And then you're doing mono foods, which is creating the same bacteria overload. Now, this is a huge subject. I can talk about it over and over and over again. I took some notes just to kind of remind me of some things to think about. I did a whole thing on glyphosate, but I didn't really want it to be just about glyphosate. But I wanted you to be aware that there are hidden things that are endocrine disruptors that can jack you up and make you gain weight and make you estrogen dominant, because that's what it does. And besides stress, and besides other chemical exposures, and besides eating too much meat and have it convert into sugar, I just wanted to bring up some key points for you guys to think about why you're gaining weight. Do not fast. Do not eat 2 pounds of meat. Understanding what's going on with your existing health is, so it doesn't matter that somebody you know or somebody you watch online says they're doing amazing. That's not going to be you, because we're all different. All. So I want to remind you guys, I'm putting on a challenge where I'm covering all these diets. And I'm doing the deep dive. I want to sit and look at things that people don't think about, like water. You know, is glyphosate getting into your water? Is it disrupting your endocrine system? Are you gaining weight? Your thyroid is affected by glyphosate. And then you try to do carnivore and fast and find miracles, and you find your body rebounding over time and things get worse, right? Your body begins to have a problem converting T4 into T3. You can't get T3 into the cells. Your TSH levels are high, or your antibodies are high. So that's a whole nother thing. I'm going to go over, like the thyroid. I'm going to go over the cholesterol myth, and I'm going to go over these details to give you guys a better understanding of things to look for that are in between the lines, and how some of these lifestyle habits that you have are going to affect your keto adaptation, which is to get into ketosis, because you want to access that body fat, right? We want to access the body fat. We don't want to burn proteins that'll jack with your immune system. That's going to have a rebound effect. That if your body feels stressed out because it's having to eat itself because you're not in ketosis, you lose weight at first, then you start gaining weight. That's how this happens. And the thyroid symptoms start to freak out. Hair starts falling out. Constipation is a problem. Nobody thinks they're constipated. Most people are. The loose stool, the floating stool, the gallbladder. It's all the stuff I talk about. But today was tired and gaining weight. Now, this gaining weight thing, I'm going to talk about it over and over again. You cannot just do carnivore and then fast and expect you to lose weight. People are doing things like jumping in ice baths. Baths. They're not looking at their adrenal function. What's going on with their adrenals? We're not living like we did as hunter-gatherers. We are stretched. We're going through debt. Not me, but a lot of people have debt problems. They've got children to take care of. Food is so expensive these days. There are so many issues. And then there's the self-image that if you don't feel good in your body, like today I had a consultation and the woman's like, well, I want to lose weight. I'm like, you can't put that as your number one. You have to think about, she had a genetic mutation. I forgot the acronym for it, some rare genetic mutation where she could not handle anything, a fructose, maltose, sucrose, anything. So the keto diet was perfect for her, but then your gallbladder has to work. So how do you find solutions for people with these issues? She started saying, I don't want to gain weight. And I said, I don't want you to worry about gaining weight. I want you to worry about, she had also had thyroid issues. We want to worry about your thyroid. We want to worry about the leaky gut and histamine response, and then this genetic mutation. Once you get all those fires burned out, your weight will come off. But don't focus on weight first, my people. That's the biggest mistake. Don't fast, think you're going to lose weight if you've got adrenal issues and thyroid issues and blood sugar issues. Find out what's going on with your blood sugar. I have a million videos explaining blood sugar and ketones and how it goes right and how it goes wrong. And I'm out. Thank you, everyone, for joining my channel, and more to come. I want to do a video. I want to play a video really quick, by the way, that I queued up before I forget, on just understanding glyphosate and how it could possibly affect certain people. It's just I think it's about a minute worth.
So many health implications from using glyphosate. It potentially will cause liver disease even in low doses. It's been associated with cancer increases such as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It is a hormone disruptor. It can cause developmental disorders, autoimmune disease, birth defects, and infertility. Another thing that glyphosate is linked to is depression. The gut is the second brain, and the gut creates serotonin and GABA and other neurotransmitters that are those feel-good neurotransmitters. And if you're killing your gut microbiome, then your brain is going to suffer as well. In addition to all of the harmful effects that it can have on humans, glyphosate is also responsible for contaminating our soil, contaminating our water, contaminating our air. And
so, that's just one type of chemical that's out there. And if your body's very sensitive, if you have a gene mutation, how is your body going to deal with that chemical? Everyone is different. So there's a lot of moving parts as to why, because the woman today, she was like, oh my God, like some people just lose weight. They can eat whatever and they lose weight. And like, it doesn't work like that. Everyone is different. And we start off very similarly, and then we start going down different roads of damage. And we're being damaged every second. Every day that we exist in the modern world, we're being damaged by heavy metals, by chemicals, by pesticides, by preservatives, by forever chemicals, by so many different things, and everyone's body is different. So you can't just think about a diet. A diet alone is not going to fix you. It's not going to fix you. You have to really educate yourself. You can't be lazy on it. Some of the people in my consultation are just like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I go, no, 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 no. We got to find out what's going on with you first. Because people they feel stressed to hear, like if they have thyroid symptoms or if they've got high insulin, or they've got high liver enzymes. It's like they feel so uncomfortable to talk about the details. And they're like, can we just talk about the solution? I said, no, I want you to understand what's going on with your body. So when you take action, you're going to be educated on what you need to do as an individual, and stop listening to other gurus tell you how they're so great, and people running out to the iodine, potassium iodide drops because somebody mentioned that's a good thing to do, which can be harmful without selenium. You guys got to educate yourself. And so many of you are tired and gaining weight on carnivore, and you don't know why. But I do. It's just like a series of 20 videos I need to do to break it down. Or you know what? I just need to talk to some and do some more real people with real stories so you can hear it from people themselves explain how they did carnivore and start having issues or starting to gain weight on it and starting to feel extremely tired, and then talk about how they ate. And typically it's because they weren't adapting, or their gallbladder was not releasing enough bile. They were not absorbing enough fat to be used. So if your poop is floating, that's not good. Should be sinking bottom of the toilet. All right, guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Again, I think I might have pre-signups June 1st and start the middle of June for this. I was talking today to my web guy, and we're really trying to work out how to do this whole thing to where it's user friendly for the people who join this challenge, and you pick the dietary measure that fits you. I'm not going to just do keto. I'm going to do carnivore and low carb, high fat, and then a lot of information to help you understand how it works, how the measurements of food work, how your blood sugar works, how ketones work, how sleep and stress affect your numbers, why you might be gaining weight on these diets, how to combat that so you can lose the weight or deal with your fibromyalgia or deal with your chronic fatigue and your adrenal issues and your thyroid issues, or men who've developed low testosterone or people have leaky gut and histamine. I really want you to be like, oh, this makes so much sense. So stay tuned. Small horse out the door? Not yet. Okay, guys, energy. Wow, time goes by so fast. I can't with it, but life is good. Comment below if you feel like you are tired or gaining weight on carnivore, and let us know what's happening to you. I'm not always able to answer the question. Y'all ask a lot of questions. I'm like, okay, sign up for a consultation for that, or join. I also have a course. It's $15 a month through stephanieperson.com, and then I have a challenge. We'll work as a challenge slash course, and that will be $30, but it'll be the most impactful and compact of everything that I can think of put into 30 days. So stay tuned for more information about that. Signups are not ready yet, but they're coming soon. And yeah, you can go to my Instagram, which is Stephanie Ketogenic, my Facebook, which is Stephanie the Business Person. I've been doing this thing for almost 16 years solid without eating any carbs, but I do best on keto omnivore, much better than carbs or carnivore. So we're all different. And yeah, life is good. Life is really good. Stephanie Ketogenic on my Instagram. Comment below or book a consultation or sign up for my course through my website or wait for the challenge. And I'm out.